Take two. Well, this is a long overdue update on the hydro situation with the smart meter at my house, and what an interesting story it has turned out to be. Anyway, for anyone who's just tuning in and watching this video for the first time, I'll just briefly go over why I wanted to do all of this. The first thing I saw was a video by a guy called Jerry Day down in California, and whilst I was watching it, I think it was the smart meter spying on you. Anyway, in the related video column, there was another video called The Dark Side of Smart Meters by a guy called Rob States down in California also, and I watched it, and I sincerely recommend that you watch that video. It is absolutely incredible. That video led to me watching the Brian Thiesson over in BC, the Kamloops Lectures, and through that and some friends here in Ontario, I became acquainted with Josh Del Sol, who's doing the Power movie. And actually at this point I'd like to say thanks to all of you for all the incredible work, for standing up and speaking out on this important issue. We need more and more and more people. I think that's one of the reasons I went through the situation, or that I did when I changed my meter, was because just lack of numbers allowed Hydro One to bully me. So why am I doing this? Well, firstly, there is the health issues, and here is an incredible article by the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, and it says chronic exposure to wireless radio frequency radiation is a preventable environmental hazard that is sufficiently well documented to warrant immediate preventative public health action. Here is some people in Maine with the consent. They took a class action to Maine Hydro, and they won an order to have an opt-out provision put in there. This is wireless sensitivity. This is Donors Conscious magazine, Smart Meters Dumb Idea. This is how smart meters between the frequencies in your house wiring and the street wiring and the frequencies in the broadband form a harmonic frequency to destroy our infrastructure. How nice. Also, this privacy, big issue. EU warns about will enable the massive collection of personal data which can track what members of a household do within the privacy of their own homes. So there are privacy issues, huge privacy issues. Last but not least, in this little pile is who controls the off switch. Now, this is an incredible article written from the computer labs at Cambridge University in England, highlighting some of the cyber warfare potential weak links smart metering opens up, whereby the whole of the grid system could be turned off by someone hacking in. So the same way that you transmit your information to change the temperature inside your home through smart appliances or what have you. Now, if that isn't a huge issue, I don't know what is. Last but not least is the constitutional issue. The Constitutional Act, everyone should read this. It's the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's the Constitution Act of 1982. And Article 7, everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principles of the fundamental justice. 8, everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure. That's exactly what this is doing. This is breaking the Charter. And I want to get into the Charter a little bit later because this is a very important side issue. So how did this all begin? How did I go about this? Well, I started off, I knew I'd have to document everything. So everything is documented, and that's really, I can't emphasize that enough. You have to document absolutely everything that you do. Everything that you do. So you can refer to it in the future just in case it goes to court, or you want to back it all up. So anyway, I wrote them a nice letter asking them if they would take a smart meter off my wall. I had some issues as outlined here. They sent this back, and they basically said that the Hydro Act of 1968 basically gave them power over me to do whatever they wanted to do. So I went back to Jerry Day, and Jerry Day had this thing where you could get a meter and some notices to send off to Hydro One. Now, because Hydro One is a standalone corporation, it's governed under UCC, and notices are how corporations talk to each other. Okay, so these are legal, valid documents. These notices, by the way, I don't know what Philadelphia lawyer wrote them, but they are absolutely airtight. Absolutely airtight. Anyways, I got them signed by a lawyer, notarized. I sent them off registered mail, which I tracked so that I know that it was picked up at their end. There was an expiry date. I then sent a notice of default, which is a very strongly worded document, which basically says, you know, because of your absence of action, you've given me complete right to act on my own behalf on this issue. So anyway, nothing happened. So of course, I'm feeling pretty good about it, although I'm pretty hot on the whole darn thing. And well, it took about 3 weeks, and I got the first notice. Oh, sorry, let me just get back a little bit here. So we changed the meter. Yeah, I was feeling pretty hot to trot. We did everything perfectly. Now, you asked about the meter that Jerry Day sent. Okay, this is the meter that Jerry Day sent. It is a completely analog meter. It is wonderful. It's an ABB meter. It's the meter that PG&E used down in California. It does connect to the bases. They're all standard slot sizes, so there's no problem there. The only problem with this meter is it is not certified for billing in Ontario with Hydro One. Okay, so I went out and I bought this meter. Okay, and this meter has a little tag on it. I don't know if you can see there. There's a little tag, a seal. I paid $100, and this is certified for billing purposes. Along with this meter comes a certificate to say so. Now, this is a GE meter. The smart meter that's on the side of my house was assembled in Mexico with parts from China. At least GE was made in America. Anyway, it is completely acceptable to Hydro, and they know it. So we got the meter off, everything done properly. We photographed the old meter, that's the final reading, so we knew what the last reading was, so there'll be proof that no Hydro was stolen. And we photographed the new meter once it was installed to show that it began at 0, and it was also, so there was no gap. I had a testimony to say that that's so by the person who installed this meter. Now, if you're going to go about this yourself, you have to, I don't know what it is in BC and other provinces, but the ESB, the Electrical Safety Board here, has ruled, they've told all electricians that they are not allowed to remove smart meters, and if they do, they will lose their licenses. So basically, you have to do this yourself, or a friendly electrician who, you don't want to name the guy, okay, because he may lose his license over this. So anyways, we got the meter off, we got it changed, and as I say, it took about 3 weeks, and I got a notice from Hydro One, basically stating that I had until July the 2nd, I know you can't read this, but I'm just holding it up for novelty. I had until July the 2nd to change my meter back, or they were going to cut my Hydro off. So I contacted them. I said, what about my notices? They told me my notices were meaningless. I spoke to the senior counsel for Hydro. They said it was meaningless. So I then contacted my MPP. I sent her this letter. I sent her all the information that I had acquired so far, so that she was appraised of the situation. I still haven't heard from my MPP. I haven't spoken to her directly. This is some 2 months later, and I've only spoken to her secretary. Now, when I asked the secretary, could my MPP do anything about this, she said no. So I'm really wondering who's in charge here. Okay, I'm wondering who's in charge here. So what I decided to do after talking to my 4 legal friends who have been advising me sort of off the record on all of this, and this is why I know all of this is valid. I know this is valid. These are legal documents. Okay, Hydro One is just trying to buffalo me because they can pull the plug, and they know pretty well you're going to keel. And most people just cannot afford to have the plug pulled. You know, we're so dependent on Hydro; it's an essential service. So anyway, what I decided to do was, they gave me a choice of meters. I took the one that uses Rogers broadband network instead of the Hydro One network, and I sent them this letter. I registered it, and this letter basically says, well, look, I accept under duress. Okay, you have broken the law. It is you who are in the wrong. My notices still stand, but you're an essential service. I can't live without that service. Therefore, I have to acquiesce, but it is done under duress. So at least that is on record that I did not want to go along with what's going on. So now, where are we? Right now, I am just amassing all of this information because health is going to be an issue, there's no doubt about that. And I see people are approaching the health issue side of it very strongly, and that is great. But I got a funny feeling that we're going to go through the tobacco experience, which is, when you have enough anecdotal evidence, maybe, Health Canada will change, like it did with tobacco and lead and arsenic and asbestos and, all those things that were deemed to be safe, uranium, etc., etc. So anyways, let me just clear up who Hydro is. This is off their own website. This is their memorandum of agreement, and it basically says Hydro One is a standalone Crown Corporation. It says that Her Majesty the Queen owns 100% of the shares in Right of Ontario. That means it basically belongs to us through our government. And it's an interesting study because of the usage of words here. Okay, so the first part is mandate. Now, the mandate when Adam Beck had Ontario Hydro was the safe, reliable and effective transmission, or at-cost transmission of hydro to its citizens. Now it reads, Hydro One Incorporated's core mandate is the safe, reliable and cost-effective transmission and distribution of electricity to Ontario electricity users. And 2, Hydro One Incorporated will operate as a commercial enterprise with an independent board of directors that will at all times exercise its fiduciary responsibility and a duty of care to act in the best interests of us, the users? No, of Hydro One Incorporated. Sorry to disappoint you there. So anyways, basically what this does is, Hydro One was cut like a cake. And they separated those wedges into Hydro One Incorporated, which is the umbrella organisation, and then there's OPG, Ontario Power Generation, Ontario Services, and Ontario Transmission, I believe it is, Power Transmission. So it's basically, if you took a photograph then and now of the whole structure, it really wouldn't look a lot different. It's just there's a razor thin division now between these crown corporations, all under the umbrella of Hydro One Incorporated. So when you go onto their website, you can look up their privacy code, and the privacy code is quite interesting. And I just want to spend a moment, I won't dwell on this, there's a lot more on this I could get into, by the way. But the first part is the applicability of the privacy code. And the applicability is who this applies to and what it actually means. So down here it says personal information means any factual or subjective information, recorded or not, about an identifiable individual, and this includes information in any such form as age, name, ID numbers, income, ethnic origin or blood type, opinions, evaluations, comments, social status or disciplinary actions, employee files and medical records. Okay, now that's a pretty broad amount of stuff that they consider as personal information, and the fact that it says factual or subjective. Subjective means that you could phone up Hydro and say I think this person over here is stealing Hydro. There you go. You don't have to prove that. That's subjective information. You just code it in. I mean that's pretty flimsy. So then we get into why do Hydro want to collect this information, and there are 7 reasons. 3 of them pretty much make common sense. To establish and maintain responsible commercial relations with you, of course I understand that. To meet legal and regulatory requirements, well of course we understand that. Hydro is important. To provide you with information about the electricity and market and rates, well good, that's exactly what we want. But 4 of those 7, a full 4, listen to how many times they say the same thing. To understand your needs and eligibility for products and services, to recommend particular products and services to meet your needs, to develop, enhance, market or provide electricity products and services, to manage and develop Hydro One's businesses and operations. Now what do you think their main focus is? Delivering Hydro to you or gathering information just so they can sell you stuff? And that really is what it's all about. Now I just want to read you the consent section here. I know this is a little tedious, but this is, you need to know some of this stuff, and you need to look some of this stuff up yourself to really understand what's going on here. So this is your opt-out, and you'll see why it's your opt-out, because it's an implied consent. Okay? It says, we cannot tie the provision of services and products to a requirement for consent to a collection, use or disclosure of personal information except as necessary to fulfill an identified and legitimate purpose. We may obtain your consent, for example, by way of an application form or where disclosure to a third party is contemplated. Okay, so this is when they're going to give your information to another third party, like another industry of some kind. An opt-out check-off box whereby failure to opt out is presumed to constitute consent. So in other words, if you can't find this box, or if you don't understand the words that they've written down and the way they've written them, you are going to miss, because this here, we cannot tie the provision of the services or products and a requirement to consent of information. That's your opt-out right there. It tells you that you don't have to consent. But it does go on to say, there's always this implied threat. I always love the way they word these things, right? It says, you may withdraw consent at any time, subject to legal or contractual restrictions and reasonable notice, and we will explain the implications of such a withdrawal. So there are implications attached to this. So now during all of this, it's right on the first page why they want to collect it. Now they have limiting collection. Now this is where the words that are used are very important, because when they're saying that they have a fiduciary of care to Hydro One Incorporated, those are hard words. We must. That when you say things like must, you have no choice. But here it says the type of information we usually collect and maintain in your customer file may include mailing and local address, email address, telephone number, social insurance, date of birth, credit history, transaction history, and driver's license number. But it says on the first page what they consider personal information. So that's what falls in those little gaps. See where I've highlighted there? I've highlighted those 2 words. Okay, those are gaps. Those are gaps where that information on the first page falls through this statement in limiting collection. Okay, so this is how they trick people in the words of documents so that you don't really understand what is actually being said here. And then finally, I want to go over here to customer choice. Again, the implied threat is, in most cases, you are free to refuse or withdraw your consent to the collection, use or release of your personal information at any time by contacting us as specified in the questions or concerns section below, and our staff will be pleased to explain your options and any consequences of refusing or withdrawing your consent, and we will record and respect your choices. Isn't it wonderful? The English language for you. Okay, so this last section is And I know, as I say, I know this is a little tedious, but it is important just to go over some of this stuff. Now, I said everyone should read this, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Constitution Act 1982. Okay, where Hydro is in breach of the Constitution is Article 7, everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of the person and the right not to be deprived thereof except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. And 8, everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search and seizure, and that's exactly what's going on here. It says wiretapping, which is illegal. Okay, it's absolutely illegal. That's why the police have to go to a judge to get a warrant to wiretap you or to surveil you in your own home, because they have to let someone in authority know, well, what's the reason for this? Not so you can sell me an appliance. Okay, so the other important article here is Article 32, and it's to whom the Charter applies. And it says, this Charter applies to the Parliament and Government of Canada in respect of all matters within the authority of Parliament, including all matters relating to the Yukon Territory and Northwest Territories, and B, to the legislatures and governments of each province in respect of all matters within the authority of the legislature of each province. Now, it doesn't mention us, and there's good reason for that. It's because the Constitution is what the government is going to provide, because the first 31 articles are what the government is going to provide for us, the citizenry of Canada, and that is their guarantee and promise to us. So when they break this, they've broken their own law. Okay, and that's what's going on right now. So the next thing is Article 52. Now, I love this article. And Article 52 reads, it's under the general section, it says, the Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution is to the extent of the inconsistency of no force or effect. So although, yes, Hydro is correct that the Electricity Act is a valid document, it's only valid as long as it doesn't break the Charter. And I'm pretty certain that in general the Electricity Act, it doesn't break the Charter, but smart meters do break the Charter. Now, why is this important? I often find that because I've been in Canada 32 years now, but you can probably tell that I'm from England, and a comment I often get is, well, isn't Canada the greatest country in the world? Well, don't you just love living here? And I think sometimes they think that maybe I'm complaining or not being, liking what I've got type of attitude. But so I now ask them, well, what is it that makes Canada so great? What is it that gives us what it is that we've got? Why is it such a wonderful country to live in? And it is, believe you me, it is a wonderful country to live in. And it is this. It's your Charter of Rights. Okay, 800 years ago, the signing of the Magna Carta was the beginning of the common man and woman having a say in what's going on, and the people who have died to maintain this to now, right up until the Second World War, even Vietnam. This was all about the democracy and the Charter of Rights. And if we let this slip, you see, this is what's happening. I mean, I can't understand why an MPP or an MP would ignore the national grid risks to cyber warfare. Knowing the Stuxnet and the flame virus, and that this was government-sponsored cyber warfare. Well, does anyone think, for example, that there's nobody in Tehran who's figured out that if you pull the plug on Canada or on North America, we're basically we're going back to the Dark Ages in a hurry. The health issues to the constituents, to our children, to women, to the girls who are at school and being doused in Wi-Fi whilst their eggs have no myelin sheath to protect them. I mean, we're running the greatest genetic experiment in history. Why would our MPP not be involved in an issue like that. This is a crown corporation, for goodness sake, and this is 800 years of law sitting right here. And this is why I think it's such an important issue, and why I'm going to continue to stand up for these. My father fought in the war, my grandfather fought in the war, supposedly to stand up for this document. You know, this document should be read. You know, the person who spilled red ink on it, you know, there's a lot of blood on this document. 800 years. And it's always been trying to be nipped at, and what's happening is that we now have corporations running the country, not the government. That's why the MPP can't do anything. But why they wouldn't, I'm sure everyone I've spoken to has a concern for this. Okay, and this is why I'm putting it out here, and I would like to get everybody on board here to try and raise some awareness about what's going on and how dangerous this is. There's nothing wrong with having wires lying around. Sure, you trip over them once in a while, but you know, the safety risk is so huge. The safety risk is so huge, it is just not worth the risk. Anyway, that's my update. I'm continuing my fight. I'm doing this YouTube. I'm getting ready to go public with this to try and raise some awareness, and I'm going to continue to talk to people. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Thanks. Bye-bye now.